My husband asked me to lie to the police. I confessed to a crime I didn't commit and let the court decide my fate. I was in my early 20s when my whole life fell apart. I was living with my husband, Chad, who was a bit older than me, and his brother, Duke. Duke was married to a woman named Rose, who was about my age. The four of us shared a house, and while it might have looked normal from the outside, inside it was always tense, especially between Rose and me. We argued a lot, and everyone knew it. When Chad and Duke went to work, it was almost a given that Rose and I would end up shouting at each other. Our neighbors heard it so often they just stopped reacting. It was like background noise to them. But I need to be clear about this, because people always jump to conclusions. Rose and I never got physical. It was just words, sometimes mean, sometimes petty, but only ever words. The day everything went wrong started like any other. Chad and Duke left early to work near the Zamandar's office, cutting patty and fixing a roof. It rained most of the day, so they didn't come home for lunch, which wasn't unusual. I remember thinking they'd come back tired, hungry, and annoyed, just like they always did on days like that. That afternoon, I went out into the yard. The heat was getting to me, and I felt sick and overwhelmed. I had this weird feeling that something was off, but I couldn't explain it. Rose was sitting on the veranda with her child. The baby had been crying earlier but had finally fallen asleep, and the house was quiet, but in that tense way where you know it's not going to last. When the men came home that evening, there was no food ready. Duke immediately asked for food. Rose told him there wasn't any because he hadn't given her money to cook. And just like that, the argument started. It escalated fast, like it always did, and at first, I really thought it was just another fight that would burn itself out. But it didn't. Duke completely lost his temper and struck Rose with a farm knife. I remember her falling forward, and I screamed without even thinking. I didn't touch the knife. I didn't strike her. I didn't even move toward her. Chad grabbed me and covered my mouth to stop me from yelling. Duke dropped the knife and started pacing. Completely panicked. The baby woke up and started crying, and everything felt chaotic and wrong in a way I'd never experienced before. Not long after, a man named Randy came to the house asking about overdue rent. He was an older, respected man in the village, the kind of person people went to for advice. The second he walked in, he knew something was terribly wrong. He asked if Rose and I had been fighting earlier that day, and Chad said yes. Randy stepped closer to look at Rose, and before I could even open my mouth, Chad said that I had struck her with the farm knife. I just stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, to say anything else, but he didn't. Randy asked if Rose was dead, and Chad said yes. That is when it hit me that things had spiraled somewhere I couldn't pull them back from. By the time Randy left, he believed I was responsible. By the time the police were called, that version of what happened had already started to spread. I was just sitting there, trying to process how fast my world had flipped, while everyone else seemed to quietly accept that this was now my fault. No one asked me what I saw. No one asked me what I did. It felt like the story had already been written without me even getting a chance to speak. After Randy left, the whole house felt different. The yelling had stopped. No one was really crying anymore. It was just quiet. This heavy silence where everyone knew something bad was coming and no one wanted to be the first to say it. I was still sitting there, trying to make sense of what just happened. When Chad finally started talking to me, that's when I realized things weren't calming down at all. They were getting worse. He told me I needed to take the blame. At first, I honestly thought I misunderstood him. My brain just couldn't process the words. I asked him what he meant, and he told me not to panic, to just listen. He said if I said the right things, nothing bad would happen to me. People would understand, and it was already being handled. What made it worse was his tone. He wasn't yelling or threatening me. He was calm, almost gentle, telling me this was the only way to protect everyone. He said Duke wouldn't survive prison, that families can recover from losing a wife, but not from losing a brother. He kept saying I was young, that my life would still work itself out. Over and over again he repeated, I will save you, but the whole time he looked terrified, like he was trying to convince himself just as much as he was trying to convince me. Then he started telling me exactly what I needed to say. He said Rose attacked me first, that I picked up the knife to defend myself, and that it was an accident. Listening to him, I realized this wasn't a conversation. I didn't have a choice. The story was already decided, and my part was just to repeat it. Duke barely spoke during any of this. When he did, he only asked what would happen to me. Chad told him not to worry, that he would handle it. And that seemed to calm Duke down. No one asked me what I wanted or how I felt. That's when it hit me that this wasn't about love anymore. It was about fear and control, and choosing the person who was easiest to sacrifice. And I was the obvious choice. I was the younger wife, the one who argued, the one everyone already saw as difficult. Of course it would be me. When the police finally came, Chad stayed right by my side, trying to manage the whole situation. He kept jumping in, correcting my answers, explaining things for me, adjusting the story as he went. I could feel his eyes on me every time. I opened my mouth, waiting to see if I would say the right thing, and I didn't. When they asked if I killed Rose, I said yes. When they asked why, I said I couldn't stand her anymore. And when they asked if she attacked me first, I said no. I saw the shock on everyone's faces. Chad looked completely thrown, and he tried to interrupt, but the officers shut him down and told him to let me answer for myself. I think everyone thought I was being stubborn or dramatic or trying to make things worse on purpose, but that wasn't it. I realized in that moment that if I lied, even to protect someone else, I would be trapped in that lie forever. I would belong to it, to Chad, to the village, to the story they had all decided on. And if I was going to lose my life over this, I wasn't going to lose myself first. That's why I said what I said, and that's when I knew there was no going back. Once the authorities took over, it stopped being about what actually happened. It became about what sounded most reasonable to everyone else. I was questioned over and over again. Different people, same questions. And every time, they got the same answers. Did I kill Rose? Yes, why? Because I couldn't stand her anymore. Did she attack you first? No, she didn't. I could tell people thought I was being difficult, that I was trying to make things worse for myself. But that's not what I was doing. I just refused to repeat the story Chad had given me. Once I made that choice, I couldn't undo it. Even when it became clear how much it would cost me, Chad completely fell apart when he realized I wasn't following his plan. He kept trying to interrupt, to explain that I was lying and that Rose attacked me first. Every time, he was told to stop and let me answer for myself. I was arrested and taken from my home while people I had known my whole life just watched. I saw all kinds of reactions on their faces. Some were uncomfortable, some were angry, and some were just relieved that it wasn't them being taken away. At court, I said the same things again. Chad was called to the stand and he broke down crying, saying I was innocent, that he loved me, and that he would do anything to save me. Duke was questioned too, and he admitted that he was the one who did it. He said he lost his temper because he was hungry and tired. He could barely stay standing while he spoke, but the judge didn't believe them. Randy, the man from the village, testified that Chad had already confessed to him earlier and that he had warned Chad not to lie. For the court, that was enough. They decided Chad and Duke were just trying to protect me from punishment. I understood why it looked that way to them. When the judge explained the consequences of my confession and asked if I understood, I said yes. When he asked if I wanted to change my statement, I said no. He asked me to identify Chad in the courtroom, and I did. Then he asked if Chad loved me. I said yes. And when he asked if I loved him, I said yes too, because that part, at least, was still true. People still look at me like they're trying to figure it all out. Am I the reason everything fell apart, or just the easiest person to blame? I keep wondering if things would have gone differently if I had just said what everyone wanted me to say, or if it would have just changed who paid the price. I don't know if I regret how I answered, and I don't know if I care. All I know is that the house doesn't feel like mine anymore. The marriage doesn't feel real when I think about it, and the man I loved now feels like someone I never really knew.